Hey everyone, it's me again, Vinny Laspinuso. Um, as we all know, we've all heard about the accusations that have come forward in the past couple days involving the Washington Redskins, or should I say the Washington TBDs, as they announced they'd be retiring the Redskins name after 87 years of use. And as we all know, 15 to 17 women have come forward against Larry Michael, their play-by-play announcer, Alex Santos, their player pro personnel, and a few other people like Dennis. I think it was like Dennis Green and Richard Mann were a few others in the Washington Post article. They explained the detail of how these women were sexually abused by these men. And for the Redskins, I think they just fired them because, and in this case, Larry Michaels just retired because he knew the story was getting out. So he just wanted to just cover. And no, Dan Snyder is not going to be selling the team. He's not going to be forced to sell the team because of this. The Redskins might face some actions, but Snyder's not going to be going. The report said that Snyder is not going to be forced to sell the Redskins. So if there's any Redskins fans that obviously I know Snyder is not a popular guy. He has not done a great job as team owner. They've gone through 9 head coaches, gone through nine They've gone through 9 head coaches, going to be on their 10th with Ron Rivera, and they've had 9 last place finishes, and they've only had 5 playoff appearances, 3 division titles. Like, only times they've done that, they've had won 9 to 10 games. Also, the same way they made it to the playoffs. Only 9 or 10 wins, nothing more, nothing less. But going back to the name, the Redskins have used their name, Redskins. Washington has used the name Redskins ever since when they were in Boston, and after their first year, they renamed themselves the Redskins to differentiate themselves from the Atlanta, back then Boston Braves. So, what kind of name could they use for the future? And ever since they made this announcement, hell, even since they made the announcement that they were going to be reviewing the name, there has been speculation of what the new name could be. Now, one that got out there, what I thought was pretty funny, was when the Harlem Globetrotters said, hey, you guys could use Washington Generals' name. Now, the name Washington Generals is a nice name. The only downside with that is that if you know anything about the Washington Generals in terms of the Harlem Globetrotters, that is the team that always loses to the Globetrotters. So, you really want to name yourself after a team that always loses? I mean, Washington Generals is a great name itself. However, it doesn't exactly have the best connotation. I've also heard of things such as monuments or presidents, but that hasn't really gotten any steam. I've heard one person say the Washingtons as like a joke. And I've even heard some people said, hey, don't change the name, just change the logo and make it a potato. Like the Redskin potatoes, which I thought was pretty funny. But in all seriousness, they're not going to actually do that. But I've looked at some names. These are the top 5 names that I've seen that has gained some traction. But there is one name that I believe stands out by the rest. So the 5th name that I've seen is Hogs. After the iconic offensive line during the 1980s when they were on their dynasty and won 3 Super Bowls with Joe Gibbs as their head coach and Joe Bugle as their offensive line coach, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Rich Grando says Washington Warlords. That's a pretty cool name, but it's probably not going to be that, but that is a pretty cool name. My issue with the term Washington Hogs is, I don't know, it really doesn't flow up the tongue that well, and not only that, you're referring to an offensive line from the 1980s, you're not talking about the entire team as a whole. I mean, as great as the 80s and the 90s were for the Redskins, you need to understand this team goes back to 1932. So it would be very weird to just highlight one particular aspect of their team's history. Yes, they haven't had a lot of success, but they have had a lot of success. They have won a couple championships before the Super Bowls. So it's not like we should just ignore that. I'm not saying and even then, the name Hogs, I'm kind of mixed on it. I'm not really huge on it. Next term I've heard is Red Hawks. Like the way that Miami of Ohio, Miami University used to be called the Redskins until the late 90s, where they renamed themselves the Red Hawks. I'm not really huge on the name, mainly because we already have the Seattle Seahawks, and you're gonna have another team named Hawks in there. Sounds a little bit redundant. Plus, we already have 5 teams named after birds. I think we could use something else that's not named after a bird. Again, the name Red Hawks is fine. It's just that we already have 5 bird team names. We have the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Atlanta Falcons. You have 5 teams. You're going to have the Washington Redhawks now, like 5 teams. 6 teams, really, after birds. I'm not crazy about that. I've heard Red Tails. I like the name Red Tails. However, unless you know the context of the term Red Tails, it's not really going to come off as much. For those who don't know, Red Tails is not referring to a bird in particular. It's referring to the fighter pilots by the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II, comprised of African Americans. The only downside I have with this is it's not really native to the area. And even though the name sounds nice, it is just focusing on just one particular aspect of the military. It's not really focusing on all of them. It's a nice name, but I feel like that needs a little bit more context. Red Tails is nice, but as the time has gone on, it feels like its momentum has waned a bit. The number 2 option has actually arguably the most likely one, or might be the second most likely one, depending on who you ask. The Washington Warriors. The Warriors, not the Golden State Warriors. It would be a very easy change if they were to just not do anything. Even if they were to keep the logo, they could just rename themselves the Warriors and just be the same. I like it in terms of alliteration. Washington Warriors just kind of rolls off the tongue. And, I know one could say, oh, there's already a team called that. Well, you have the St. Louis Cardinals and the Arizona Cardinals. You have the San Francisco Giants and the New York Giants. You have the New York Jets and the Winnipeg Jets, the Carolina Panthers and the Florida Panthers. I don't think it's that out of the ordinary to have a team that has the same name as another pro team, especially when they're in different sports. And I've heard some people say that if they call themselves the Warriors, they can bring back that old spear logo that they had in the 60s and they brought it back for that one year in 2002. I like that. I like the darker shade of burgundy and the darker shade of gold. But I don't know. I think it is the most likely name. Not only that, Dan Snyder has actually trademarked the name from 2000 to 2004 because he wants to have an arena football team named that, but it never got off the ground. Though there is a guy that has harbored a lot of trademarks for Washington, so I'm not sure how that's going to work, but they're going through all the trademark issues, and we'll see what happens with that name. However, even though Warriors has the biggest history and might be the most likely, again, depending on who you ask, there is one name that has really come up and in the area of DC, and by most accounts is now becoming the favorite to become the new name. And that name is the Redwolves. Now, before I get into the Redwolves, let me explain to what Dan Snyder and Ron Rivera want for the new name, because Rivera is involved with this as well. They want to have a name that honors both the military and Native Americans. And yes, that's a double-edged sword for both people, because if you have anything that honors Native Americans, some people will feel a different way. And especially with the military, you know how many people are divisive about the military, especially right now with everything going on. But you can honor it very subtly. Even if it's not blatant, you can subtly honor the military. And you can honor everything. And the name Redwolves is that name to me that if you just name it that, you literally cross all your marks and you cover all your bases. Even the ones that you didn't even think about before. Now, a red wolf is obviously a type of wolf. It's a type of dog, technically. Why I'm big on this is, like I said with the Redhawks, the reason why I wasn't big with the Redhawks is because you'd have a 6th team named after a bird. I've also heard people say maybe you can name it after like a cat or something. We already have 4 teams named after cats: the Lions, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Panthers. But we don't have any teams named after dogs. I mean, we have teams like the Browns who have a dog mascot, and the Saints, Gumbo, their mascot. But we don't have any teams that are named after dogs or any type of dog mascot or any type of dog name. And this would finally cross that mark, because if I recall, the only professional team that I recall that has a dog sort of mascot or name is the Arizona Coyotes for the NHL. I mean, that's only one. Only one. And a dog is a pretty common animal, or any kind of dog, like a wolf or fox or what have you, a dingo. Now, what is a red wolf in particular? Well, red wolf is, well, a wolf, but it's not really red. It's like a reddish kind of color, like a brownish. What's interesting about this animal is that it's native to the DMV area. It's native to Maryland, Virginia, DC, West Virginia. It's native to that entire land. So you'd be naming your team after something that associates with that area, which already can connect with the fan base that's in the area of the DMV area. Not only that, I saw that a report came, I think it was from NBC Sports. Oh yeah, the Timberwolves. Right, the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's another team named after a dog. Yes, thank you, Carolina fan. That's 2. The Timberwolves, cool name, and the Arizona Coyotes. Timberwolves didn't cross my mind. I guess it's because they haven't been doing that well. Again, not trying to mock Timberwolves fans, but trust me, you know that's the truth. So I'm going back with the Redwolves. It's an animal native to the area, which would already give the people of that area, the DMV area, to have a sense of connection with the team. And in a recent poll, Redwolves is easily the hands down most popular pick by fans and people in that area. Also, the red wolf is an endangered species. Yes, an endangered species. Scientists are saying that if the Redskins were to rename themselves the Redwolves, this could drastically improve and help conservation efforts for the animal, and almost like how the bald eagle was an endangered species for a long time. After conservation efforts, it's no longer an endangered species. I don't even think it's threatened anymore. Scientists are saying the same thing could happen to the Redwolves if Washington decides to go forward and name their team and rename themselves the Redwolves. I'm just charging. I personally think it's a great idea. Sorry, I'm just charging. Sorry about that. Sorry, just charging. Is it working? Sorry. Let's just check this. Yeah, it's working. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, guys. So as I was saying, renaming themselves the Redwolves could really help conservation efforts, and it can move them. They're on the brink of extinction, this animal. And we know how much we need to take care and protect the endangered species. What better way to do that than to name an iconic franchise after that animal? Sounds like a good idea to me. Now you might be saying, how does this tie into the Native Americans? How does it tie into the military? Didn't Rivera and Snyder say they want something that honors both of them? Yes. And the Red Wolves encompasses that too. Now, as you all know, the Native Americans used every part of an animal. Whether there was a buffalo, or, a turkey, and a wolf. Wolf hide is commonly used in that area. The natives during that time, they've used wolf hides almost like a cloak. I've seen some logos. Like, it's not the one I have right here. I've seen an image of a Native American having, a red wolf hide over their body. I don't think they will use a logo like that because I don't think they're having any blatant Native American logos. But it is a cool logo though, and it just shows yes, there are ties to the natives with it. Not only that, in many Native American cultures, a wolf is seen as a very spiritual and very enlightened animal that has a lot of power, ferociousness, fight, grit, which could really encompass a team. Also, going back with that, the military side, there was from the 70s to 2016, there was a Navy SEAL helicopter sea combat squadron 84 called the Redwolves. Like I said, they were Navy SEALs. So you already have. They may not be around anymore, but a military squadron in the Navy call themselves the Redwolves. What's around DC? Right by it is the river. I forgot what the name of it is, but I gotta look at it. But again, DC, you can honor the military there. You honor the Navy. You indirectly reference the Navy with your name, which at the same time honors the culture of the Native Americans, and you help an endangered species from becoming extinct. I think everybody wins with that name. With Red Hawks, it's not doing anything. It's not mentioning an animal native to it. It's just a quick fix and you don't really think much about it. Hogs, I mean, yeah, but outside of words, it's not really going to get many new people on board. Maybe just already existing fans. Red Tails is nice, but you need the context for it. And for Warriors, the alliteration works, but Warriors doesn't involve an endangered species. Not only that, when you have Warriors, sometimes your imagery would be kind of vague and it would be pretty hard. And with Red Wolves, I mean, just think about the endless opportunities Washington can have if they renamed themselves the Red Wolves. They'd still have the HTTR that have hailed to the Redskins. It's Howl to the Red Wolves. The fans can nickname FedEx Field the Den. When there's a sack or a touchdown, an interception, a big forced fumble, safety, field, whatever, the fans can howl. How great would that be for the fans to interact with the team and have that environment? Not only that, the Redskins, who the last several years have had their home games dominated by the fans of the opposing team. Wouldn't that be an interesting way to get people on board to support your team, is by interacting with them? Like, how they did the tomahawk chop for the, how they do the tomahawk chop for the Chiefs? Man, I can't even say it. Tomahawk chop for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, the fans interact with the team. That's a sign of interaction. The Red Wolves, if they call themselves that, could do the exact same thing by howling. And when you have the interaction between team and fan base, the bond becomes tighter. And when the bond becomes tighter, more likely than not, more people are going to be wanting to go to your games. Also, I mean, a wolf is a very famous animal. It's a very iconic animal in cultures across American history. And when you think of a term wolf, I mean, like, when you look at red tail, you have to understand the meaning. Like, what do you mean by red tail? Like a plane, really? Meanwhile, a wolf, I mean, anyone can relate to that. Anyone can relate to what a wolf is. Everyone knows what a wolf is. Everyone knows that a wolf is a ferocious, very aggressive, passionate animal that's willing to fight to get its prey, to support its den, its cubs, to fight for its cubs, being the entire area of DC if it becomes a state. Who knows? I know they play their games in Maryland, but Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., said that they will not let. They said that they will not let the they will not let Dan Snyder move the Redskins to D.C., where RFK is, unless they change the name. I think that could work. I mean, and also going back with Red Tails, it does work for DC, considering how, DC is a very ever-growing African-American population. But I feel like you don't want to alienate the people that aren't that. Because, yeah, it relates to one side, but I think if you have something like this, you can really relate to everyone. And especially the fact that it's based on a species of wolf native to the area that relates to everyone. Where Red Tails may relate to some people, doesn't relate to all of them. Warriors, again, relates to just Native Americans and veterans. But if you call themselves the Redwolves, you're relating yourself to the Native Americans, the military, and you're connecting yourselves to the people of the DMV area. Carolina fan says, you can tie it to the African Americans too. The first HBCU was the Cheney in Pennsylvania. Guess what their mascot is? The Wolves. I didn't even notice that. I literally had no idea. That's another thing. The term Red Wolf means something different for literally everyone. Everyone has a connection to that. Warriors, not so much. Hogs, not at all, really. Red Ox, not really. And Red Tails, only a few. But Red Wolf, or in one certain way, form, or wolf, what have you, any kind of form of it, it connects to at least someone in that area. The African Americans, the military, I said Native Americans, African Americans. It helps an endangered species. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, yeah, it doesn't have a fancy Carolina fan, yeah, I know what you meant, don't worry. I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want from a name that encompasses everything? Interaction with the fan base. It keeps the ATTR. It keeps the red in the name. It helps an endangered species. It helps the black community. Helps the Native American community. Helps the veterans. It encompasses everything. It's a cool name. Interaction with the fan base. You can call it the Den. They can howl. The merchandise is going to be crazy. Warriors has been done a lot. It's an overused name. I mean, I like the name, but it's been used a lot. Anything hawks or birds. Hogs, no one's going to get unless you're the fan base. And just like monuments and generals, yeah, that helps the area. But it doesn't represent the people. It doesn't represent the people. The team are the heads of the wolf pack. And we are the cubs. We are the cubs. Well, not me. But the people in the area are the cubs. They protect us. They represent us. They watch over us. They fight for us. They do stuff. They try to win for us. Again, I like the name. It's my winner. I agree with Fred Smoot. I agree with most people in D.C. I agree with them in Lower Maryland and Upper Virginia. Howl to the Redwolves. Ooh. And not only that, the name could be nice. The logo could be really cool. I mean, the logo I have in the thumbnail, that's one you could use. You can emulate so much stuff with the Red Wolf. You can have like a paw print. You can have like scratch marks. You could have the DC flag being implemented. You could have elements of the Capitol building. You could even have some Native American imagery. You could have that sort of feathery, fur-like pattern. I mean, you don't have to emphasize it a lot. Just make it subtle. The military thing's subtle. Native American's subtle. But use the wolf prominently. And they're probably not going to do much right now. They're probably just going to call themselves Redwolves. Just have like a regular wolf right there, and they'll wait for the whole rebrand in the next year or two. It takes a little while for it. Or they could hold that off until who knows, or they can just have a placeholder R logo like they also have. But I don't know. That's not really gonna get people excited. I mean, you could do anything with that. You can call themselves the Renegades if you want. You can call themselves anything, or you can call themselves the Red Wolves, and you just have the same Native American logo because it could mean that too. But I think his name was like Blackhawk or something like that, or Blackfoot. But this is red. It's not black. Again, guys, like I said, what are your thoughts? It's a easy name for me. I don't know about you, but I think they would knock this one out of the park. Warriors, you had your time, and Red Tails, sorry, but again, the Red Wolves is something you guys don't. It encompasses literally everything you could possibly imagine for a team name. Everything. Literally everything. Not much more I could say. Take care, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the name Red Wolves? Do you prefer the team? Do you prefer the name like Warriors or Red Tails more? Is there another team name that I didn't mention in the video that you like even more than that? Whatever it is, comment below. Let me know. Let Zenny know. Let us all know. We'd like to know what you have to say. If there's any mock-ups for Red Wolves or any other logos that you've seen, also give me a shout out on Twitter at VinLasBenuso91 or Oakland News Now Zenny62 Media. Anyway, you want to show it us? We'd love to see more. Have a great day, everyone.